Well, good night, good night, and welcome to another Marcia Weeks show. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Ferdinand Nichols, and it's an honor for me to be able to just host this show, and I hope co-host it. I don't know if Heather's going to be able to make it in a little later, but certainly I'm looking forward to being with you again tonight. And we have a great show again lined up, a lot of different subjects and topics to touch on, just for me to be sure that you're hearing me well and that you're seeing me well, because I want to make sure that you get Caswell's image well and Rose's image well too. So just to confirm that you're hearing me okay. So good to have all of you. Natasha, again, good night. CG, good night. Great to have you. Loyal Daughter 66. Remem 6070. Thank you for all the work that you do in encouraging persons to share. Kamhar, yes, good night and happy Friday to you and the opposition members and leaders. Marlene Seeley, good night to you as well. So, just to confirm you're hearing me, just to give me a quick heads up, just any one of you can just tell me if you're hearing me okay. I just want to be sure that our audio is going out okay. But a great show lined up for you tonight. Hopefully, we'll be able to take and answer some of your questions. Thank you, Marlene. Thank you so much. We are hopefully going to be able to take some of your questions and comments and have a great night, an enjoyable night as well. Rhonda, good night to you. Kamhar, yes. Jefferson Sobers, wonderful. Great to have all of you with us. We are at 57 and rising. Tonight, we're going to be looking at a number of things. Of course, Caswell is always an exciting person to listen to. Thank you, Pauline. Really exciting person to listen to. You know, you get a lot of information from Caswell, knows so much about the Constitution, so much about the law, so much about the regulations and the bills and so on. We really appreciate having him with us every single show. And of course, then tonight we're going to be hearing from Rose, the educator. She's going to be doing another presentation. And I think we're going to have to probably touch on a few things to do with the debacle that occurred at the Springer School. I was just reading some some messages coming in where children are still uh, dealing with some really serious fallout from that entire debacle. I mean, it's incredible what has happened. Good night, Level, Levelin. Levelin. I hope I got that right. If I didn't get it right, please forgive me. Okay. Joyanne, good to have you too. Celia and Edwin, Sir Alfred Benjamin. Pleasure to have you with us again tonight. Edwin Price, yes, thank you for confirming that you can hear us good and loud and clear. Thank you so very much. And real joy to have all of you joining. 74 and building. Keep coming, share, that we can get as many people as possible onto the show. I've really learned a lot from being here. Especially from that young man, Kimar. I tell you, Kimar is a brilliant young man. And I don't know how many of you all made it on a Wednesday, but we had a tremendous show with Dawn and Jonathan and Chakwani, I think was her name. Great show along with Kimar, the young people expressing their concerns and sharing their ideas as to some of the things that could be done to help build Barbados and to help develop our economy and to help do things differently. And my God, how we need to do things differently. You know, I am an advocate for a massive change in the political landscape of Barbados. I believe that we need to some people would say out with the old and in with the new. I believe that there's a lot that the old would have already. Good night to you too, Andrea. God bless you. I believe there's a lot that the old still has, you know, with the wisdom and the years of experience, been there, done that, now what? But there's an aspect to politics in Barbados that we need to change. We've become a new republic. We're supposed to be working on a new constitution, which I thought needed to be in place before we became a republic, such as what happened when we became independent. But who am I? I don't know. I don't know any of those things. I'm probably the religious guy, and some people would tell me, well, you should stick to the Bible and so on. But if I stick to the Bible, I have to be involved in these kind of things, because this is where righteousness, justice, truth, integrity, transparency, these are the things that we should be promoting. And there's some comments and questions coming out. Somebody posted a question, and I don't know if we can address it tonight. I'm hoping that we will be able to get to it. But they were asking about something about the matters of, let me get to it. Is there a lack of ethical leadership in the political culture of Barbados? If so, to what extent has it contributed to the social, moral, political, and economic problems in Barbados? So we want to look at some of these questions and engage them. And when Caswell comes on, we're going to be discussing that with him. I'm not 100% sure if Kimar will be on tonight. I hope he will be. I know Rose will be here. Of course, I'm here, and we're looking forward to a great, great night. But I really want to see. I really think that there's a need for a change, and I understand that the opposition, the Democratic Labour Party opposition party, watches the show. I have no doubt the Barbados Labour Party watches the show, and I'm glad that they do. And I hope they learn some things from the show, and I hope they don't continue with the nasty, dismissive, disingenuous kind of looking down on people kind of attitude in the way you speak. This is 2023. Those days where you could talk down at people or talk at people are over. They're over. And people are not going to tolerate that anymore. We've just been through a pandemic. And what has happened is that across the world, people have lost trust in government. It's not just here, it's across the globe, throughout so great to have you, Sugarcane King. Thank you for getting into the house, and thank you for encouraging us for a new show tonight as well. Thank you so much, Joy and Faith. Yes, they were brilliant young people, weren't they? I mean, I enjoyed just kind of sitting on the fringes. I couldn't keep out of it, as you would expect, because contrary to Caswell, don't tell him I said this, but contrary to what Caswell says, he may be on the way to the departure lounge, but I way back. Way back in my house. Okay, I'm way back in my house. I am very young. I mean, you can look at me and see I'm very young. I mean, I haven't aged one iota. Just kidding. But these are things that we want to bring to the forefront. We have to change all of this blind loyalty that people have, that you are going to be so committed to an institution rather than committed to values. We need to be committed to values, not to people and parties and organizations. Values. And you can tell a country's values through their belief systems. And this is why it's so important. People talk about Barbados as a Christian nation. I don't know, we could debate and discuss that. But one of the things is sure is that a lot of our values have been derived from our faith. We have the values of fairness, justice, integrity, transparency. These are things that emerge from where we are in our belief system. And so I really want to personally see a massive reset. If they're going to talk about a reset, let's talk about a reset of political mentalities and political conduct and how we carry on our governance. We're persons in Parliament recognize, understand, grasp fully that you are not the masters of the people. Just because you happen to sit in Parliament does not mean that you can lord it over the people. You are the people's servants, and you should be conducting yourself in that manner, not getting up and making laws and passing bills that will have a long-term effect and impact upon the people, changing up things to do with national insurance without consultation, writing off things as though you because you're elected to office doesn't mean you have the right to do what you like. That's not what it's about. That's not what a republic is about. And that's why I like the whole process. I do, to a large degree, like the process in the United States when it comes to the matter of the republic, where the parliamentarians are voted on and they're elected. The Senate is voted on and they are elected. The prime minister or president is voted on and elected. I don't know concerning the president, but and then the prime minister cannot ad hocly install judges and so on in the legal system. That should go through the Senate, and those persons should be nominated, should be made to sit before a panel of senators that were elected by the people and not chosen by the government and what would be an opposition, but should be elected. That's what a republic is about. And I'm going to stall here for a long time because I understand for the people, by the people, of the people. That's the republic. And if we're going to really I'm told we are the newest republic in the world. And if we're going to set an example that Barbados has done for many years, down through the years, we've set examples. We've shown ourselves to be people generally of proper morals and proper ethics. And if we're going to maintain that, then we're going to have to reset our political landscape in a big way. I am tired, and I'm sure many of you are tired of politicians speaking down, talking down. I saw this message coming to me last week as I was on the show, where something happened with regards to the Ministry of Transport and Works, and I am told I can't verify it. I haven't been able to personally verify it myself, but I'm told that the Prime Minister just kind of dismissed it. Said, well, I provide the funding, and when something breaks up down there, they gotta look after it. And no, look, you are our stewards. You're the stewards of our assets. We are giving you the responsibility of looking after the assets of this country, and you are not there to do what you like. This is the people of Barbados's assets. They're not yours. You do not own them. The people of Barbados owns the assets. You should not be selling off property from a governmental standpoint, because if you're going to be dealing with governmental properties to be sold off, they don't belong to you. They belong to the people, and you should be asking the people. Should be presenting to the people your plan and telling the people, this is what we would like to look at. This is what we have in mind. What are your thoughts? And you might say to me, but that's going to take a lot of time and we have to go here. Well, you're doing it now. You're going around all over the country, having meetings, already having put in place what you want to, so that when you have your meetings, you're telling the people what has already been done. That's not the way for a republic to run. I don't know how it's done anywhere else in the world, and I don't care. I don't care. We do not follow the rest of the world. And if we've been doing so in the past, we need to stop it, and we need to establish what is suitable for us as a people in this country. If our majority of the people here don't want same-sex marriage, honor that. If they don't want septic tank water in their wells, honor that. If they don't want you to interfere with the national insurance scheme and change the ages and all of that, honor that. If you want to do something about it, before you do anything, tell the people what you intend, explain to them, because you're dealing with a broad spectrum of people in a country. You're dealing with people who have nothing more than primary school education, some secondary school education, some tertiary education, some university education. You have a responsibility to embrace and bring in the entire populace of the country. You were not just voted in to represent highfalutin people. You were installed, you were elected and put into office to represent the people of this country. And I am going to be one of those people to hold the government's feet to the fire whenever they're engaging processes that I believe are not the fair and correct way of doing business. And I am disappointed. I'm telling you this now. I'm disappointed in the supporters of any party who would see what is happening in the country, what is going on, what the government is doing, and still blindly follow them without contending. If at the, what I'd like to see? I would like to see some of you Labour Party supported people, because I know they're watching the show. I know they're watching the show. Okay, so here's what I would like some of you Labour Party people to do. At the conference at the end of this month, you need to stand up in the conference and ask the ministers of government, including the prime minister, to explain certain things to you and to give an account as to what are the terms and conditions for a $300 million loan for the airport, terms and conditions of a $100 million loan for the Wyndham development, and that the Chinese have done there in St. Philip. Explanation as to why you're going after $40 million at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital when you so callously wrote off $1.3 billion that the government owed to the national insurance. But you can go and take loans and find the money and borrow money and use the borrowed money to pay back the International Monetary Fund their loan. But you can't find $1.3 billion and all them billions of dollars that you're borrowing to pay the people's national insurance contributions back to them. You see, these are the questions that you people who are in the Barbados Labour Party, who should not be blind followers of anything. If you have any sense of value, this is what you should be doing. And if you are not doing it, I question your sincerity, I question your values, I question your belief system. And that is the kind of thing that when we begin to see that happening, then I will believe that we have had a significant shift in the political landscape in Barbados. And I would be happy to see that happening. I am not going to, some people have asked me, why don't you attend some of these meetings and express it? I'm not wasting my time, because I'm not going to go where people can insult you, curse you, and attempt to embarrass you and determine what questions you can ask, to be brutally frank, before you even ask them. I'm not wasting my time. I'll tell you what I would attend. This is what I would attend. When I see the Democratic Labour Party, when I see the Barbados Labour Party, when I see the government, the APP, people like myself and Caswell and the others, when I see them sitting at a table to answer the concerns and questions of the constituents in Barbados, regardless of their political affiliation, that is when I would believe that we have had a significant shift in the political landscape of Barbados. That is what I would consider to be a shift, a reset, because we should not be functioning in a lot of this foolishness. I understand, for example, the executive of the Labour Party was returned before the conference. That is the old-time way of doing things. Why didn't they elect them during the conference? Why didn't we? This is how we do a conference, even in religious circles. We have a conference. Persons, before they come to the conference, persons put forward their resumes and so on. When it comes to whether they want to be the bishop, the assistant bishop, the treasurer, whatever it is they want to be, they put forward their resume. We have an opportunity to look at the resumes, and then when we get into conference, we vote in conference. But they are going into conference in October, and the executive already chosen. That is what they see as a republic. That is not what a republic is. It means that the rank and file of the people in the party have not had an opportunity to cast their vote. But a few, and I'm sometimes careful, but a few handpicked people in the constituency who don't have the intestinal fortitude to intestinal fortitude to take a stand and ask tough questions and push back. They're the ones, who will get in there and put a rubber stamp. And I am not a rubber stamp person. Caswell is not a rubber stamp person. And I know there are a lot of you that are not rubber stamp people. We have our own sense. Even if we disagree, we agree to disagree. But we have the liberty, we have the right, the freedom of expression, the freedom of association. And that association must never put an organization ahead of values. Never. If there's nothing you learn from tonight, learn that. Let values be the determining factor for what you decide to do, even involved with a political organization. Well, I've had enough to say for the night, and I see my good friend Caswell is in the studio, and I'm going to welcome him with us tonight. Good night, Caswell. It's such a pleasure, my friend, to have you back again. I see you pulling out all your. I hope you know what to do with that. You know which end goes into the device and which end goes in your ear. I hope
I've
you.
had enough practice.
Oh, goodness gracious me. So nice to have you with us again tonight. Mark Clark, all of you, Sandra Franklin. If I've called your name before and I haven't called your name yet, please forgive me because the things are coming up there so quickly, so very, very quickly. And we have 196 going so far. So, Caswell, you're in the house. There's so many things that we could be touching on. I know that there are probably some burning issues that you would like to kick off on, and this is your time. So I'm going to kind of like step out of the way and let you articulate the areas. Um, you remember earlier this week we had the matter to do with the Barbados, the BAMC divestment, and something to do with staff being severed. I don't know if you have any further news with regards to that you could share with us tonight. There was a question, Kazul, that came in that maybe we can begin the night with this question because, in all fairness, when the questions come in, we would like to try to answer them and engage them as much as possible. Kazul, this question has come in, and I am flattered because the questioner asked Marcia if she could ask her young team
But
to
I'm here.
discuss this concern. And the question is this, Caswell: is there a lack of ethical leadership in the political culture of Barbados? And if so, to what extent has it contributed to the social, moral, political, and economic problems in Barbados? I'm going to copy it and just drop it in our private chat so that you can reference it as you share. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, Politics destroys everything they put its hands on in Barbados. Wherever the politicians put their hand, it is destroyed. You remember years ago, starting way back, a lot of people might not remember, at the large school, a man called Aurelius Smith. He was the principal, not a man that I had a lot of regard for. I call he beat me at school for that when they were a little bit common there. But I've never forgotten it. But so when I see he getting some licks, I don't mind so much. But when you sit down and then look back at the situation, I remember he had a discipline as a little fella, a guy who bought school a knife, and he actually pulled it on the headmaster. Headmaster took it away from me, gave a couple of lashes, and that became a national event. As a result, he ended up losing his job as principal of large school.
Wow.
And I went to court, and eventually I was proud then to pay him the compensation that the government had to pay him. It was substantial. He's dead now, so I don't think I'm breaching his confidence. He got well over $500,000 as a result. But as a matter of fact, he was in law school trying to start a new career. But when he got that lump sum, he decided down in law school. He was right, absolutely right. But the politicians got in, and the little boy came from Bush Hall. The representative of Bush Hall at the time got involved, and next thing you know, Education Act changed, and to this day, it has this the education in Barbados has not been the same. It has not been better. They keep messing around with it, trying to fix the problems, but they destroyed education in Barbados, starting with that singular event. Now we have a situation in Barbados where um, we have secondary schools, primary schools. The primary school staff are public servants. The secondary school staff at the teacher level are public servants. The ancillary staff, they work for the board. The teachers don't work for the board. As a matter of fact, I have seen situations where um, the board calling teachers. I had two experiences and I tell you about them. I had a reason to because I have a few teachers in my union too, And a teacher called me and said the board called her to a meeting and she want me to come and represent her. I said, I'm not coming. The board cannot call you to any meeting. But she was still a bit weary and frightened, And I said, look, okay, let me write to the board for you. And I wrote to the chairman of the board, pointing out the limits of his authority, and then told him that he's flown past his nest. And as a matter of fact, he saw me some big savage and he didn't mind me raiding him, but I didn't have to tell him that he would flew past his nest. He thought he could call in teachers and chastise them. Some boards still do it to this day. Right? That is one. Another, I went to my alma mater to represent the principal a few years ago, and the teachers, Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, had brought a complaint against him. So I sat down and listened to the complaint, and then I asked them, "What are you doing here?" He does not have to answer to you. He does not work for you. And the union responded by saying, "Oh, but we've been doing it so for years." I said, "You've been doing it wrong for a lot of years then." And she said, "But it is a custom and practice." I said, "Well, my dear Lord, let me explain custom and practice to you. Let's say that I kill people. I'm a murderer. I kill people all the time. And the police eventually catch me for the last murder that I committed. And my defense cannot be, boys kill people all the time. Because the custom and practice must first be legal. And your actions are not legal. So he's not going to sit down here and listen to you." That matter, at that point, the chairman was trying to stop himself from falling off the chair. But that matter finished there. Not the current principal, mind you. Um, but you can see the education is still messed up from that time till now.
Mhm.
You know?
So the
And
whole
then
so the whole aspect of ethical leadership, you're saying then contributes to either an improvement or decline within the context of our social, moral, political, and economic condition in the
precisely,
country.
we have a lot of corruption in this country, and people say, "But the politicians doing it too." You see civil servants doing a little fiddle, and they say, "But the ministers do it, so he can do it too." The minister can't get everything for himself. I've heard those comments, and I've spoken to people about those comments, and I say, "But look, he doing it does not make it right for you to do."
That's
And of
right.
course,
That's
sometimes
right.
people tell, but no, they justify their behavior based on what the politicians are doing. A fella who has the authority to give contracts, civil servant has seen at certain levels can issue contracts. I know of one case where the contract must be under $100,000 or something like this, where you can give it, and the permanent secretary or whoever can issue those contracts. You have a contract now, and they say, "Well, we're going to split it up in four and give them out $400,000 contracts." One civil servant, to my knowledge, says, "Whoa, I ain't touching that because the RJ I'm going to put my name in the report." But the others went ahead and did it.
Hmm.
At whose
Hmm.
behest? At the minister's behest, because the minister's friend was getting getting those four contracts. No, that contract should have gone to public tender. But if on a public tender, the minister's friend ain't get it. At least not based on the bids that he would put in. So you see, everything that they touch, everything they put their hands on. Now look at the election. They have cheated, broken every rule to become elected, and then I keep saying all the time, they break the law, and then they break the law, they win elections, and then they call themselves honorable. You know, a lot of this stuff like spending too much because a poor fellow like you or me, Freddie, should be able to run an election and don't have to put out all this money to attract people because the laws are designed for anybody to run, not just a fellow who can attract hundreds of thousands of dollars from merchants. And that is why you can't get price control in Barbados because the merchants fund the campaigns. So you
But
see,
do we have Caswell in Barbados? And pardon me, it's not necessarily a question I'm asking because I may not know, but I am mindful of the fact that there are people who will watch this show who are watching the show that may not be aware of some of these things. And as you know, as a result of us asking questions, Kimar brought out some things that led you to other things, and so one thing led to the other. But do we have legislation in Barbados that requires politicians to reveal the sources for the funding of their campaigns?
yes, as a matter of fact, it is observing the breach. I remember some years ago, I heard Busy Williams say that he gives to both political parties. And I wrote a column and I said that cannot be true. I was just tongue in cheek kind of thing. I said it can't be true because if it were true, when I went and checked the returns, because the returns are available to anybody who has $3. I went to the registration department, paid my $3, and I want to see the returns. Never, not a cent came in from Busy anyway, because each person has to that gives a donation has to declare it to the electoral office, and the MP and the candidate who receives it also has to declare it. But nobody declares anything, and people just take them a big and they know they're doing it wrong. They're not doing something wrong because they're not giving you checks. They give you in a big brown paper bag, and I can tell you, to my certain knowledge, that I've seen those big brown paper bags. All right, so the system is is designed to be to be um to be corrupt, but not necessarily designed to be corrupt. The system is there, and but there is no way that the people who do it wrong will ever be caught. Let me show you, because the civil servants run the elections, but the civil servants, in order to get to the top of the civil service, have the only body who can put you at the top is the prime minister. You can see a candidate challenging the prime minister. I mean, a civil servant saying the prime minister's election returns are incorrect because, to my certain knowledge, she did not put in this expense. She didn't put in what the next expense. You know what will happen to that person? That person would end up in trouble. They would get transferred someplace else and never get promoted again. You can see why. Look right now in the public service, they are appointing heads of department on contract. Right?
Sorry,
When you
I was just
when
trying
you
to to show these couple of clips based on what you were just saying.
Right.
So just let me share a couple of these clips so people can see this is what we are dealing with. I don't know if you can see it clearly on the screen, but you can see whose constituency office this is. I think the screen is showing it. Can you read that? Okay,
I can see
you can
says
see what does it say? You can see what it says on it.
Mayor More Motley.
Oh, okay, all right. Let me run a couple of these clips. Look, you see the van there? You see the van
Mm,
there?
yeah.
Okay, let's look back at this one.
Yeah. You want toilet paper, buddy? Sure, brother. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
All right. Now, here is this is in terms of the ethics we're talking about, Caswell, and I don't want you to lose your thought, but this is what we are dealing with, to my understanding, right now. Um, I don't know. I don't know that this has been contested as not being accurate, but I understand there is a development opposite Queen's College, is it? And
Yes,
I
it
am
is.
led to understand that only Muslims can buy properties in this development. Now, it's alleged. I'm saying alleged because I don't know for a fact, but this has come through. And for everything that they have to say, one is left to wonder, if this is so, Caswell, what has Barbados come to, where persons can be determined their ability to purchase anything, period, whether it be food or car or land, on the basis of their religious connection.
You see, look, wherever you go in the world, but people who come to Barbados and they set up communities, or any other country, they set up communities. They they try to stick together. And what happened here is that they will get this piece of land. They were given permission, They bought it, they advertised it in the mosque after prayers. So nobody knew, nobody else outside the mosque that day, even people from other mosques, I am told, did not get, because there are some people who believe, even among that community, who believe that they're better than some. So some people, if you go to a particular mosque, you're not as good as the fellow that go to this other mosque. And so even other Muslims didn't get a chance to purchase land there. They don't even want them. These are the fellows who got the money. The guys who can pay something to get things done. And so right now you can't even say you can't, what the Muslims can't buy, because all are already sold. So nobody else can buy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were sold in less than a day. They had owners. When they were advertising in the mosque, and I because I get calls from everybody, and when the other Muslim communities, the other people in the other mosques heard, some of them called me to complain about it. I didn't make an issue out of it, but I can tell you why that is so. These people want their children at Queen's College. Okay? So now when you put down your address is opposite Queen's College, they can't say that you can't get in if you got the marks, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that would be
That's the
one of your
school in your
choices.
zone.
That'd be your zone.
Right,
I was
right.
talking about that the other night, because this zone thing is a bunch of corruption too, because people in Nelson Street were not in Harrison College zone. You know? And, you would believe that. But you know why? The right, Nelson Street has or had, I don't know. I've never been
Well,
looking for that.
I only drive through. I only drive through occasionally, but I've heard, but I cannot testify.
But they don't want those type of children, or those kind of, from those people in Harrison College. They were in Harrison College zone. You could stop on top of your roof and look and see Harrison College from Nelson Street, but you couldn't go there. You see, this partial zoning, as they call it, not the one who all kind of this nonsense zoning thing. Barbados is small. When I didn't get back to what I was talking about, but
Mhm.
when I was a young boy going to school, the schools open at different times to accommodate the poor transportation that we had. And everybody got school early, because getting school late used to be a punishment. And if you get school late too often, you got caned. So if I got to school early, even if that means that you had to get up at 6 and go and catch the bus, get down there. People at Boscobel who live all in St. Peter used to get school before fellas in Bush Hall. I was at the Common Bear. And Bush Hall fellas whose schools and the whose house butted in the boundary of the school wall. They used to get school late, and the fellas in Bush and Boscobel used to get school early. So it isn't a question of, I hear people from St. Philip shouldn't go all the way down to St. Lucie and all kind of nonsense. But this is small, and it gets the bus and go down the road. And I can tell you what it did. It gave me a cross fertilization of the people in this country. I have friends, as a matter of fact, I would have gone to the Carmel reunion tonight, but I can't make it. But I have friends from places I didn't even know existed until I went to Common Bear. I have friends from Port House in St. John, Church Village in St. Philip. All these in the same class. Arthur Seat, St. Thomas, even though I live in St. Thomas, I never went to Arthur Seat. And Jackson, Long Gap, Spooners Hill. So we mix and we come together. I know stories about people in those areas, and I never set foot in a lot of them, right? Because we had a cross fertilization, and so we didn't form communities and beat and shoot rocks at one another and stuff, because we were friends from going to school. So we mixed. We had people in St. Philip. St. Philip people had an accent. I never knew that till I went to Government Bear.
Neither did I.
You know.
I didn't either.
But that is the kind of cross fertilization that you need. Not taking the children that live near the school and put them in their school, because then you don't know nobody else. But when you go to the world of work, it doesn't work like that. The boss hire the best man for the job, where he comes from. If you come from, I know people from Lucy, who work at the airport. You can tell me, oh, they should work at the airport because the airport too far. Nonsense. It's training for you when you gotta get up and catch the bus and go somewhere and get to school early. So it didn't hurt anybody. But let me get back to my corruption thing and what the politicians are talking
Yeah,
about.
because I just posted a question there in terms of what we're sharing here. Political parties, and I believe this is the question: are political parties audited?
No. As a matter of fact,
There's no
political
requirement in
parties,
the law for that to be
there's
to
no
be.
requirement for even them to be registered. You, me, and a couple of people could get together and form a political party.
I can't get together and form a charity without registering it. How you can form a political party without registering? If I want to set up a charity as well, I have to get trustees. I have to submit a name to the Ministry of Intellectual Property. I have to wait for a couple of weeks for it to be checked and whatnot. How can you register a political party? I mean, how can you start a political party and not be required to register it?
But you know who make the laws about registering anything? The politicians. You really feel that they can put laws in place to regulate themselves properly?
But that's what we need to do. We need to put laws in place for regulation because we are not getting the transparency and accountability that we expect from these persons who are in government or
Yeah.
whatever they are.
The,
Um,
the, the, the law, a political party is an unincorporated association. It is not a legal entity, so to speak. But, however, the law requires that the secretary of the party, or some other official, but the secretary's name in the law, should make the declarations on behalf of the party when they spend money in campaigns. I have never seen a campaign where a political party spent any money. None.
but
None.
when I did my campaign, I had to submit, and because my people did it, we had to submit our revenues because there were some people who contributed to our campaign from overseas. We had to submit the contributions and we had to submit the expenditure. We had to do that. That was what we were required to do, and we complied with it.
You see, but not so for politicians. Politicians take care of themselves and make sure that they live happily ever after politics. Right? So you're not going to, I tell you, look, ask any secretary of any political party in Barbados if they ever file a return with the electoral office to say that they received money and they spent it on candidates and stuff. Because what should happen? If you have a national meeting, what they will do, what should be done, is that the money that you spend setting up that meeting should be divided among the candidates that it was in support of. So then the candidates will have their proportion on their returns. Never happen. Does not happen. So they can bribe people and do all manner of evil things in the name of getting elected, knowing very well that there will be um, no reckoning. It don't happen. Because look, there was only one man to my knowledge who ever filed a return that said he spent more money than he should have. I didn't even do anything with him, Hal Martin. Remember he ran once and he spent more
Yeah.
money.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
He spent more money than he was supposed to. Well, so what? You know, because some of that notion he should have been taken to court and banned from holding elected office for another 5 years or something like that. No, nothing happened because the people can't be bothered. He he was probably the only politician that told the truth in that camp and that thing. But nobody know what about it. I remember once going to electoral office, not the electoral office, the returns are filed in the Supreme Court registry. I went, I paid my $3, and I looked for the documents. We had candidates who did not have a poster for their campaign. Have you ever seen a candidate in Barbados running without a poster? But he did not declare that he had a single one. He did not have a telephone in his office. During the campaign, again, every candidate goes and get additional phones in the office when you have election campaigns going. No, he never had one. Not a phone. You know, he did not have people picking up people in the cars, driving them to the election, to the campaign. Because even if the fellow donates the car and give it for you, have to put the value
of the
in
car.
return.
Hmm.
That never happened. And you know, the people who review those returns and then publish them because they're required to be published, they then said, but this is a glaring omission here. What are we going to do about it? They did nothing. Did absolutely nothing about it. As I said, you're the chief electoral officer is not at the top of the public service. There's still some promotions for that person to go. So you can see I'm well qualified for certain jobs, but I can't get them because I was mad enough or stupid enough to question the politicians when they did something wrong. So the chief electoral officer can just take the forms and publish them as required by law. Not and they're supposed to investigate them. You are supposed to investigate these things and then challenge them if need be. And if you find a problem, you get the police. But that is, and I talk about that this program already, and I can talk tonight. You look what happened with the police here when the guys went to court
Hmm.
because they challenged a promotion and some promotions, and they went to court. The High Court in Barbados said they didn't have a case, threw it out and dismissed it. So they appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal was similarly minded. They had the case. So the police then went to CCJ. And when the CCJ was about to start the case, the government of Barbados lawyer said, oh, we settling. And paid them thousands of dollars and then promote some of them too. One of whom is the commissioner of police, I understand. So you really feel that you can go after the hand that feed you? You don't bite the hand that feed you. And
But
that
then,
is why everything about Barbados is so corrupt.
if what you're saying is so in terms of registration and so on, I think somebody put it in the chat. Then a political party is only a facilitator bringing together independent candidates for the sake of presenting a front, so to
Exactly.
speak. So there's no
Exactly.
reason why we cannot run independent candidates in the country without a political affiliation in terms of a party, because every single one of the candidates then is an independent person. It's an independent. And if the entity is not registered, then it is purely a nominal state of affairs.
If you look in the Constitution of Barbados as it stands now, not the one that they're going to do not coming up, there is no mention of political parties except for the election broadcast. The Because all you have to do is to be elected. The law requires that the person who becomes prime minister has to have the support of the majority of the people in the house. So those people in the house can say to the governor general, president, or what you have these days now, to say, we do not support Mayor Motley. And it happened in 1961 when Barrow stormed the office. Well, not when Barrow stormed, but the Democratic Party stormed the office because Barrow was not the leader of the Democratic Labour Party during those elections. But when Barrow won, the people told the governor, no, we don't want Branca, we want Barrow. And Barrow became the premier. Branca was hurt. He then Barrow turned around and offered him a ministry with ticket. Because here I am, destined to be the premier of the country, and then they get stabbed on my back.
Hmm.
And mind you, Barrow was a guy who was um, more, let me say, I don't know, if flamboyant or whatever, but he was the guy who
Charismatic.
charismatic. So
Okay.
the people like Barrow, but he was not the leader. So there's nothing unprecedented about a person saying to a person saying to the president, no, well, she might take us into the campaign, but the result now is that we don't want her. They could have done that at the last election. But you see what happens though, when you become prime minister, then you become so powerful and funny. So those people can't then challenge you. The only time the prime minister is vulnerable is at election night before the swearing the next day.
But didn't we see vulnerability during the administration, Democratic Labour Party, prior to the last one? I think it was 1994. Am I correct here?
Well, the last election in '94,
In
that is
'94,
when
when
Owen
a
Arthur
no
when Owen Arthur
confidence
came to
motion.
office.
Yeah, when a no confidence motion was moved in the House of Assembly against the then Prime Minister, I think that would have been Erskine Sandiford,
Erskine Sandiford.
and it was passed. It was successful, and I believe it would have led to an election then.
It was partially successful. A no
Mhm.
confidence motion, two-thirds majority would remove the prime minister immediately.
Right,
You ain't got to
but that
say it.
doesn't necessarily result in elections.
No, 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 no. What happens?
Mhm.
It will result in an election because if he's removed immediately, then the president would call elections. But in Sandiford's case, they didn't have a two-thirds majority, but they had a majority.
Mhm.
So when you get a majority, the prime minister now has 3 days to resign or call elections. And Sandiford called elections
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
can't spraddle them
Mhm.
because a whole set of them, about 7 or 8 of them, did not qualify for pensions. And Sandiford timed it so much that some of them went home a week before, 2 weeks before they were supposed to get their pension, they qualified for their pensions, you know. Sandiford, he showed them. And he felt betrayed because people gang up against him with Owen Arthur and get knighted as a result. Because, but Sandiford was adamant, and they wanted to move. They wanted him to move to do things that he did not like or he didn't want to do. But he did not have all that support. Remember, he never had all that support because when Barrow died, he became prime minister um, by a trick. They actually reported to the governor general that he was the person who had the most support. When that was not true because nobody actually checked to see how much support they had. They went to government house while Barrow's body was still in the house, and Richie Haynes was there trying to revive the dead. And they went behind Richie's back, went to the government house and tell the government general, you know, the prime minister is dead, and the fellas support Sandy. And when Sandyford came on, they told them, well, meet us at government headquarters. And when the politicians, the MPs, went to government headquarters, Cameron Trudeau came out on the steps and said, gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Barbados, and hell broke loose. So Sanford didn't have a good time after that. Because at that point there, Richie Haynes and 3 others get vexed and resigned. Because Richie thought that he should have been the Prime Minister. And he got tricked out of it. But it was politics and ethics and politics, you know. They knew that they had to go to the government house and tell the governor general that this is who we want. The next time a governor general had to check things, people actually had to sign. They never had a sign before, but the governor general made sure that a piece of paper, all the MPs that supported the person signed and say, yeah, we agree. Because the governor general got tricked with Sandyford. So Sandyford never had an easy time because the people, his own people, were angry. But when you become prime minister, you become so powerful that you gotta toe the line, or you lose your pick. You don't become a minister. You don't get You don't get um, favored.
Mhm.
So once you become prime minister, if you say first among equals, he is far more than first. And there's not equality among prime minister and the rest of the members of the house or member of the cabinet. He becomes like a dictator. When we put a prime minister in place, we put a dictator in place. And Myanmar understands that. And she has become a dictator. And her cabinet can't tell her anything. This is what we want.
You see, this is why, we advocate for what would be called in the United States separation of powers. We talk about Parliament be elected. I spoke about it at the beginning program this evening, Caswell. If we are a republic, the elections, the Parliament should be elected, the Senate elected, the Prime Minister elected. Judges should be appearing for nomination, and not the Prime Minister put in a judge in place that suits. I'm here when I say Prime Minister. I'm not speaking specifically about this one. I'm talking Prime Minister. Period. These are things that if we are going to have some what they call it constitutional reform, to my mind, these are things that need to be put in place. The people, to my mind as well, should be able to recall a government acquiring a certain number of signatures or percentage of the electorate in terms of signatures.
First, no.
They should be able to recall a parliamentarian, a representative. Provision has to be put in place um, for as a republic for these things to be done by the people, because clearly what you are saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, clearly what you are saying is if it's left to the politicians, these matters of ethics are simply not going to happen. Would I be correct in interpreting what you're saying?
Look, you remember for all the years, people always accuse politicians of stealing. That has that has been the cry from the time I was a little boy. And every opposition would say that we would put integrity legislation on the books when we come into office. I've seen many elections, and the only person that got integrity legislation on the books prior to this one here now was Randall Stewart. But it never was proclaimed, so it never became actual law of the land.
Hmm.
And when the Barbados the party came in, they said they don't like that legislation. Um, so we're going do we own thing in 100 days. It took them 4 years or 5 years to put it in
But it
place
still, but it still hasn't been enacted, as far as I'm
because
aware.
it can't be. It don't make no sense enacting it because they're now seeing that they're asking people that the chairman statutory boards, the chairman statutory boards have to declare their assets and all kind of stuff. And a lot of the people who are would have been willing to serve don't want their business up there in public, right? So a lot of people, when this come into force, a lot of people will withdraw from political life, or but the legislation give you a way out. You can put your assets in a blind trust. So even though we might be getting integrity legislation, you are getting a like integrity legislation with a big hole that you can drive a truck through. So they don't really mean it. They just do these things for sure. I said to them, okay, the legislation has some flaws, and I would give up my opposition to all those flaws if you remove the section that deals with integrity with the blind trust. No, boy, because we don't have no blind trust in Barbados prior to this. Now we are creating a creature called blind trust where politicians can hide their assets and don't let anybody know. And like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you are a politician and also a businessman. You own a company that build roads. You put those assets in a blind trust so nobody knows your shares in the construction firm in a blind trust so nobody knows that you have them. You're sitting in a cabinet and a contract comes up dealing with this company. This company is bidding. You go for it. Nobody know you own half the shares or more. So you can't put politicians out there talking you putting things in a blind trust. If you want to hold political office and you don't want to declare assets, don't come.
because that's the aspect of transparency that we're talking about. If you're talking about transparency and accountability, then my question is, what is the problem? If you're going to run, I agree with you. If you're going to run for political office, I think when you enter, you should be made to declare your financial status, and when you exit, you should be made to declare. And if there's any anomaly, you should be required to account for how that anomaly exists. In other words, if you understand, Caswell, if I'm a politician, if I'm in parliament, you expect my salary to be such and such and such. Now, if I am acquiring property and so on, because obviously my salary scale has raised and I now have a lot more disposable income and I can do things, I should be required to show all of that when I am leaving office.
We want to where they get from, because
Yes,
the
but
fellas
look,
end up
right
with
now,
far more assets than their salaries can command, and some
well,
of them
look,
come in as paupers.
look, right
An
now.
example, we had
Mhm,
an MP who, during the election campaign, the car company took up his car because he wasn't paying for it.
mhm.
The party had to rent a car so that he can get around. The landlord nailed the house because he was not paying rent, or he cannot afford to pay rent. And the children mothers put him before the court for maintenance because he cannot pay maintenance. In 5 short years, with a salary of $14,000-15,000 a month, it was at the time, he was able to amass to save out of that $15,000 a month. He was able to save $5 million. You know, we only knew then when, because what he did, and I blame the banks, because the banks would have taken that money and did not require um, them to say where you get it from. Because if you are going to deposit more than $10,000, you have to fill out a form and say where you get money from. Because I remember some years ago I got fired from UPW, and I was not there long, so my payout wasn't so big. But they decided, well, I'm going to pay cash, well, $12,000. I was only entitled to about four, but they paid me 12 so I can put them in court, because the court would say, but you get more than you're supposed to get. So I take my check and I go down to the bank, and they said, well, I'm going to deposit this check. They want to know where I get it from. I said, I get it from in there, because the union's account and my account were the same bank.
Uh-huh.
So I said, well, I don't know where it come from, but I get it from inside there. So I said, for what? You know where the money coming from? I ain't bring $12,000 in cash and give you. I bring a check, and the money is on an account inside there, and you must know where it come from, because you take that money from the body already. So I don't know where it come from. All I know that the people gave me some, and I insisted I was not filling out that form. And eventually, I kept so much noise in the bank that the manager came and said, "Let that thing," because it didn't make sense, and I don't like doing foolish things. They knew where the money came from. So how come with me, the $12,000, I was able, I had to fight. They said, no, I am filling out this form because the money in the bank. Now somebody comes in there and deposits over a period of time $5 million in less than 5 years, and nobody asks, and they put it in the mother's name. So the mother who don't used to work. So she's getting all this money, nobody asks. It's only when she died then that the family went to get some money from the bank to pay for her phone and discovered that she woman was rich. And of course,
Mhm.
now under the law, and I want to talk about that sometime again in another one of these programs, if you die without leaving a will, the people that you don't want to give your money to but get some. So you should put a will in place, because there's a certain amount. The spouse has the legal right to a certain amount, and if you give them less than that legal right, the will can be overturned. But so you got left wanting the fact to leave a penny for the wife, and that was enough. If the wife was not the most faithful, but the laws changed, and you have to leave. Back in 1975, so you have to leave the, a certain amount for the wife, or else, So, but in intestacy, if you die without even a will, the money goes to the husband, he gets a third, and then the children, the rest is divided equally among them. The husband gets his third, and then the rest of the family, I think there were lots of them, so they had the money divided among themselves, and the poor fellow had to start back all over again. So
No, you touched on a number of things tonight, in your contribution to do with education, and I see that Rose is with us. She's going to be coming in shortly, and I hope she can hear me so that she can get ready. Her camera and her audio on. Kemar is in also in the back room here, and he'll be coming in a little while to when we engage the whole discussion of education as well a little later on in the program. But there have been one or two questions as well relative again, Caswell, to the whole matter of the sewage, because you realize how much attention it grabbed during this week. And it was a repeated theme on brass tacks day after day after day. Clearly, people are concerned on both sides of the divide. People are concerned. All right. So we want to bring in Rose. Rose, we want to welcome you to the Marcia Week show tonight. What a pleasure to have your smiling face and your 16-year-old spectacles and all the rest of it. I hope you feel like I do. Caswell said he's not in the departure hall yet. He's on the way. But I told him I haven't left my house to go to the airport.
I ain't getting the ticket.
You invited you. Oh my goodness. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, but Freddie,
Well,
I
before I
have
let
the
Rose, we
visa,
let
but
Rose
I
in.
got the ticket.
Now, before we let Rose in, I want to finish with that. There's one thing I wanted to talk about because I intended to start with this, but um,
I,
you
I
this week,
distracted you.
this week you saw in the newspaper a young lady who was supposed to get some money from a gas station,
Ah,
and they paid
That was
her
awful.
$249.05, 10-cent pieces, quarters, and silver dollars.
no, 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 no,
That
no,
was
Because
disgusting.
no, no,
the yeah,
no, no,
the
no,
actually it was
no,
on the front page of the paper already
no,
because
It
no,
she
was.
no,
she she resigned. She resigned because she claimed that they were not treating her well and they were taking up money from her wages all the time for shorts and all kind of stuff. That happens in almost every gas station in Barbados, and I've dealt with some of them, and I can tell you it is dishonest. A person would hand over their money at the end of the day or whatever they do, and the people take the money from them. They go on home. They come back to work 2 or 3 days later, and they say, the day before you the short $25, and the people say, but they give you the money. It was right. And if you don't let them take out that money, you might not get money, you fired. I actually have a case like that at the Labor Department all it now waiting to go to the tribunal because they just they just take the money from you and then 2 3 days later come and say you're the short last week or you're the short a few days ago. And people are enduring that nonsense all the time. I and people feel they don't have any remedies. But they are. I wanted to talk about constructive dismissal. Constructive dismissal is not necessarily a dismissal of the boss saying that you are fired. It is a dismissal where the employer has breached your contract in such a fundamental way that you can no longer tolerate working for him. Like there's some examples of constructive dismissal. The boss curse you out in front of the staff, especially if you're a supervisor or something. So you can resign and claim constructive dismissal. At that point, you will be entitled for compensation for unfair dismissal had you been like if the boss had said you're fired. There are lots of them. If you get demoted, people get demoted and tell by putting you back down. But just like that, you can't do that. That you can claim constructive dismissal. The boss cursing out people. You're being bullied at work. You complain to the boss. The boss do nothing about it, and you can't take a fellow on trouble you all the time. You complain. Eventually, you say, "Look, I can't take this no more." You resign, and but when you're resigning, you have to say in the letter, "I am resigning because of this." This is why you can't resign in frustration and then say, later on down the road after you pass by somebody's office and the boys, well, you should have filed for constructive dismissal at the same. You can't come back afterthought. So you have to articulate the reasons for your leaving. It has to be a situation where you cannot possibly work there anymore because the employer's behavior. Sexual harassment. The boss wants some, and you can't think that. You got two ways. You can either take him before the tribunal for sexual harassment, or you can say, look, I am resigning because I can't tolerate this behavior anymore. I can't tolerate this behavior. You have a lot of avenues, but people don't know them. But mind you, when you are going to take that step, I think you should get legal advice, because it is not. Sometimes you have to prove it, and sometimes things happen. The boss curses you in the office, in his room, and you come up crying and thing. You don't got evidence that he cursed you, but he cursed you in front of the staff. You got evidence,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You know,
So
there.
if you have a situation like this where people are taking up your money because failure to pay wages or failure to pay wages when they are due is also tantamount to constructive dismissal. So we have people working like I hear the advocate some months back and a couple of years back, people were not getting paid for months. I counseled a few of them for to go before the tribunal and alleged constructive dismissal, and some of them have done it. But you are not just out there with no remedies. That is what I want people to know. And
Right,
finally,
right.
because I want Rose to come on, vacation. You are entitled to 3 weeks vacation for the first 5 years of your employment, and then thereafter you're entitled to 4 weeks.
four
That
weeks. Yeah.
must be given to you if you want it in one piece. There are some companies that say, no, we only give you a week here and a week there and a week there. No, that law does not allow that. As a matter of fact, if the employer forces you to do that and you take it to the department go to court, the employer can end up facing a fine or imprisonment. But people, they go and they say, well, look, take 2 weeks. And people take the 2 weeks. But you want your 4 weeks to start home with your children, bend up on holiday and stuff. You want to at least do something for them. No, they can't do that to you. Right? It's a crime. It is not just a matter of unethical or anything. It's a criminal act. But
Hmm.
people do it. You, if you want to get your vacation in pieces, the employer and the employee must agree. He cannot say to you, um, no, you can only take a week here now and a week after. No, that is not allowed in law. But companies do it. I'm not one
Is
of
it?
them.
Is it that they do it because they're ignorant of the law? They don't. I mean, on both sides, to be honest with you, Caswell, both from the employee's position and from the employer's position. I think it's often a case where, especially for the employees, they're not aware of their legal rights in terms of that. But Rose, we did touch on a couple of things. A number of things Caswell touched on relative to education. Not sure if you might have heard some of the comments, but there was one comment that we had in earlier about the ethical aspect of politics in Barbados affecting social. And let me see if I can just pull up the read here, because I don't want to misquote it. The question was asked: is there a lack of ethical leadership in the political culture of Barbados? And if so, to what extent has it contributed to the social, moral, political, and economic problems in Barbados? And what can the youth do to change that current political climate? Now, you are an educator, and I understand from Marcy that you're going to be addressing matters of education. So I don't know if within the context of education you could probably touch on that in terms of developing these ethical values as persons travel through the educational system. That's one. And then as I was listening to Brass Tacks this week, I heard persons talking about
I
the
mean, I missed
the
I missed you did some sticking back there, so I missed the latter
oh,
part of your comment.
Yeah, I was simply stating in terms of the educational reform. You're hearing me okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in terms of what you will be sharing with the educational reform, how we can start to develop the aspects of ethics as our young people progress through our educational system so they can contribute to the social, moral, political, and economic solutions that we need in Barbados. The question was asked, what can the youth do to change that? And then I went on to mention during the brass tacks programs this week, I heard persons treating to the whole aspect of diet being a very important component of our educational system in terms of affecting the studying capacity of the children. Now, I don't know exactly what you'll be looking to contribute, but I don't know if you could shed some light on those aspects as you go through what you will be sharing with us tonight.
Um, Thanks again for having me. It's a
Oh, so nice
pleasure.
to have you. Yes,
And
absolutely.
Caswell, we chatted earlier this morning. You told me that we agreed to have you come on early before I came on so that you could go off to your reunion. So we're saying now that it's a up and onward,
Up and on,
uh,
please.
up and on, up and on. You know I'm a St. Michael's girl, so
And I'm a Harrison College boy.
yes, and
We
being
sympathize with you. You have
at
our
St.
sympathy.
No, no
Michael's
need
is
to
nothing without
sympathize.
the help of God. So, but he's here with us, so that means that he's bringing that Cumbermerian spirit into this movement that we're having and pushing us up and on.
On.
So
Well, even more importantly, Rose, I mean, to have left out the reunion to be here with us
Yeah,
suggests that we are
because
more important.
yes, it seems so. And by the way, Caswell, who from Church Phyllis and Philip, that went to
there was a
Congomere.
there was a fellow called Ralph Rawlins. We were in first form at the time. First form, about 1970. I haven't seen him for so many years since we left school. You know.
Okay, because I'm from Church Phyllis and Philip,
Mm.
so you just needed to know who you knew from up the best village in the whole island.
That's why they put
Okay.
the president there.
Right. Oh dear. Oh dear. I look, there's certain
Caswell,
con
you had to
no,
get
no, no.
that in.
No, what is it? What is he saying again? Falcon has no right in bulldog fight. I stayed. Put it
But in
down.
response to your opening comments, Brother Ferdy, and that whole thing of being ethical and instilling it in the young people, etc. It's so interesting that I have been listening to the consultation on Wednesday night. I've been playing it. It's like ad nauseum now, but anything in recent times to do with education reform, I am reviewing, I am replaying, I am making notes, I am pausing and listening again so that I get it right. I do not want to come in this setting, in this forum, and not have facts. I am following in the lead of Caswell. Caswell can refer so quickly to the acts and to the laws, etc. Key Markham's fully researched, and I try to follow their lead so that our standard and certainly how you cheer that standard is maintained, and we're not, as my former um, I call him my uncle, but my husband's uncle, after whom the audiovisual center at Government Hill is named, Gordon Corbin. He coined this phrase a poo shark. I don't want anybody to think we're poo sharking. We're the real shark. So we're not too shocking. So it was very interesting that you start on that, because I heard the director of education reform, Dr. Denny, in promoting the proposals, spoke to, to, to this notion that the young people have lost their soul. They don't have that soul as we know it. And so they are seeking through the introduction of uh, social and emotional intelligence to instill, to inculcate um, that soul, that spirit that seemed to have become lost. And it saddened me that the curriculum, the offerings in school now has to seek to address the loss of the soul, the loss of the spirit through social and emotional intelligence instruction. I will be curious to see what that comprises. I do know in the early 1990s, when that book came out on social and emotional intelligence, you would know her, Norma Shorey Bryan, and I, we were doing training together. We're colleagues. And she said, Rosie, I've got a book here. You must read it. She had
Haven't seen and
brought,
heard her in years.
huh?
My goodness, I haven't seen and heard Norma in years.
Her birthday is coming up soon, so I will be in touch with her and
Okay,
pass on your regards.
please, please.
And Norma said, Rosie, I got a book. I know that this is something you like. And she got me. I told her Philip is traveling, I think the next week. I'll get him bring a one for me from the States. And so he did. And the concept of social and emotional intelligence is not new. Norma and I sought to introduce it in our training. So it is not a new concept. Actually, I developed an instrument, a questionnaire based on some of the areas that were pointed out. I developed a questionnaire which I used in training, and to ask people to indicate if they possessed or lacked these traits. And so it's a big thing now, social emotional intelligence, to bring back the soul of our young people. And what is it saying about the school? What was it saying about the home? Was it saying about the church? Was it saying about the community-based organizations, the social clubs that are out there providing that support? And what I am seeing too is that this loss that has been alluded to, I think that they're looking at us in key positions, and they're looking at politicians. They're looking at politicians. They are seeing the betrayal. They're seeing promises made and not kept. They themselves have been um, um, probably been beneficiaries of the benevolent, notice the words I'm using, Caswell. They themselves may have been beneficiaries of the benevolent and generous gifts that were given around. given out at the time of election, where the vote has been devalued. The vote, adult suffrage, has been devalued. That the importance of the vote, especially those, I could not wait to be 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was counting down to be 18. Was it 18 when we voted? Was it 18 as well?
You're
You're
muted.
mute as well.
I can unmute him. I can unmute him.
Yeah. No, we started the vote. I think it's
At
1971 from
21?
eight. It was at 21. I think that is up to 1971. After that, you can vote at 18.
Yes, it was 18. And I could not wait to vote at 18. I could not. And I was eager to get out, and we walked miles to political meetings in the dew, and the importance of going to vote. And nobody gave me corned beef and biscuit, nor sardines and biscuit, nor a red juicy with milk, nor some Shirley biscuits,
I never
nor
I
a
never got
cheese
any.
cutter.
I never got any.
Nobody did it.
How come they never gave
They
me
may
any?
have
I
given
never got
out,
any.
but certainly they did not come to my humble household. My grandmother would have chased them away. These things were inculcated. So when we talk about um, ethical standards and whatever, it is a shame. And I'm speaking passionately. I didn't mean to start out here, Ferdy and Caswell, but it is a shame that I should hear from the director. Go listen to it. The meeting at Alexandra, and the one of the pillars in the proposal is to introduce social and emotional teaching and instruction to bring back the soul in our children. When the politicians have have
Eroded it.
contributed significantly. Let me give you an example. In 2018, at the last moment, I responded to a call in my chest to face the electorate, and I was glad there was Solutions Barbados, a coalition of God-fearing people under Granville Phillips. I went up to Hilda Skeens Primary School to be nominated and all of that after paying my money to the treasury. And while I was there was this carnival affair. It was carnival like. And I saw a young man from church, Phyllis and Philip, and he said, Rose, that's you? Uh, La Auntie Rose, what are you doing up here? I said, I am contesting in this constituency, and I am here for nomination. And he shamefacedly hid the shirt of the incumbent at that time. You would know who the incumbent was at that time. And he said, they came out and they gave us these t-shirts. And I said, you don't have to tell me what else they've given you. Keep it, you need it. But you shouldn't have taken it, but you got to keep it, you need it. They say come out and they want a big number to go with him to the nomination to Hilda Skeens. That is just one example of where the lack of integrity and ethics and that ethical uh, consciousness uh, restarts. Then when I was out canvassing, not canvassing really, I was having fun. They would ask me, I got cursed. Don't come back here. I got cursed and I had to tell some of them either in this village from to tell me they're a couple of days old. And I know you mother and I know you grandmother. I went to school with you aunt. I went to school with you mother and I know you father. And don't disrespect me. If the others give you money, you won't get one penny from me. You're not gonna get penny from me because I don't have any for myself or less you. And I remember, and he is dead now. I would have said it before. I went into the establishment that Fox Pinder owned. And he heard I was there and he came to find out what I was saying. And we called it School in Session. And he asked me, you want this? You want some of this? And I said, what is that? He said, you want this? I said, no, thank you. What I want it for? He said, you can't be a real politician. You don't want to win the seat if you don't want none of this. Politicians state this. And I said, if I take your money, I will be bought. And if I am bought, you will think you own me and I will owe you. So this is a a new kind of politician out there who is poor, who is peaceful, who's polite, who has integrity, who will not take your money, and who has none to give for the vote. So Ferdinand, you see where it begins? And the church, I blame the church as a Christian myself for not instilling that kind of integrity. I went to so many prayer meetings in Barbados throughout 2018, and all the people at the prayer meetings didn't wear the right shirt, the right shirt. It was a foregone conclusion. It was go and vote, and I did not hear in many cases, vote with integrity, vote prayerfully, do not sell your vote. So that in some, when they look at that is where the apathy also arises. I like to quote from a movie called Higher Learning, in which Lawrence Fishburne was the teacher at a college that had a lot of social issues, racism, gender issues. And he said, it is the apathy that corrodes the society from within. And we have contributed to the apathy that is corroding our society. You said it, Pastor Ferdy, that we need to get up and respond. And it is that apathy, it is that laid back, it is the not getting out there. We see we're in a household, we are adults, and we see our young voters come in with $100 wrap up in a shirt. And we don't say nothing here. We don't sit and talk to them. That is not the way to vote and the importance of integrity. We, the elders, to encourage it. I know that there is now through the National Transformation Initiative an online course on citizenship. You know that one? Citizenship. And it offers things like who's a citizen. It offers things about governance, etc. But it is theory. It cannot, yes, it teaches you the facts. But what about the internalizing, the acting on these things that you learn? So I am responding in that way, that they seem to want to bring back the soul of the child, and I know the only person who has control over one's soul is Almighty God, but they seem to be to want to bring back that lost soul, that lost consciousness, um, to our children through education reform. Quite an ambitious undertaking, don't you think, Pastor? I'm not hearing you.
Oh, my mic was in the wrong position.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so important. I don't know if you remember that old song by Sparrow. I recently shared it with in terms of language in it, as I can't sing like him. You remember that? You remember that song? Children go to school and learn
School and
well.
learn well.
Otherwise,
But
Otherwise,
life.
later on
Otherwise,
in
later
life,
on in life, you're gonna
real
smell red hell.
we'll
You remember
have,
that? Real hell.
yes, without
Yeah,
an education, you
education
are
in your
dead.
head. And I grew up with my mother as an educator, and
okay.
I can tell you that she taught me more than just arithmetic and English.
Yes,
She taught me values. She taught me values. And Rose, I identify that in Barbados today, the problem that we have, because people talk about ethics, but I wonder how many people know what the meaning of ethics is. I wonder how many people know how it looks, because people can talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk. And I hear people talk about it, and I wonder where their value system is, because when we look at what's happening around us, when we hear people talk about, politicians being bought out by this body, the next body, and things being responded to on the basis of the contributions to political party and all that kind of stuff. What you're doing is you're literally undermining the very said same values that you are talking about teaching our children. It's almost a joke, in a sense, to talk about educational reform, which should include not just the academia, the academics, but also the values of a society, the values of a system, teaching our young people what it's like to be honest. You know what I'm saying? I remember, and the teleconfession is good for the soul. So let me confess a little bit. Every now and again, I used to peep into mommy's purse and take out $1, because $1 was a lot of money back then. And I would sneak out $1 or $2. Rose, when I gave my life to the Lord, I had to repent of that. I felt so bad. And I had to renounce all of that stuff, because my mother taught me values. She taught me to be honest. She taught me to be a person of integrity. She taught me not to allow myself to be bought out. To what should I say? To release my values for the almighty dollar. She taught me things like trust, and she taught me things like dependability. You talk about people and time. My mother taught me to be on time, respect other people's time, and be on time. These are things and she didn't teach me as a mother. She taught me as the head teacher of the school, because I got dragged along as the last child in the family to the school she was teaching at. And so I learned all of these things in school, coming from the teachers. But that was an era where teachers did more than just teach you academics. And maybe these are some of the aspects that will help, if we can somehow, maybe you can explain how we can do it, if we can somehow engraft them back into our educational reform system. I don't think it's just the home, because our children spend, and I'm sure you would be able to tell us the percentage of time a child spends in school compared to the time it spends at home. And when I say at home, I am talking about when it gets home, it has its homework to do, it goes to sleep, it gets up the next morning, that time frame. And then when it leaves home and goes to school and comes back home, that time frame. You know, we need the help of both home and school in terms of developing the soul of the child again, repairing, resetting the soul of a child again. You talked about the church, but I am on here. You're on here. I've always admired your strong Christian values and Christian ethics. But I have observed that there are a lot of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about ministers like myself, who I have to question their ethics, because I am not going to do something on the basis of my political affiliation. I'm going to do it on the basis of what my values are. And so that's why I'm here tonight as a part of this show, speaking the way that I am speaking. So I endorse very much what you are saying. But let me step out of the way again. I know you want the class to be in session, but the student has to stop at some time and let the teacher talk.
But that's a good point. I mean, you brought me in at a good point, because we have to look at the contradictions, that are presented to our children, particularly our young people. And I I am picking up a kind of laissez-faire attitude. Um, you know, this self-discovery, let them discover, not setting boundaries. Um, I have some concerns too about
No
how
courier here.
how education would be delivered. I know that they're saying in that 3 to 5 age group, they're looking at play-based education. Let them play, let them explore, um, creative learning, that kind of play-based. That is the play-based um, learning environment. And sometimes I wonder too, um, if we are not widening the boundaries, let them do what they want to do, no parameters. I'm concerned about that. Um, and then we see when they come out, particularly those 16-year-olds who are not qualified to go on to BCC, make it into sixth form, can't get into the Polytechnic. Scarce you could get into, because the bar is going up each time. Um, they cannot get into these institutions, and we are seeing the fallout then with that 16-year group. And
Mhm.
it is difficult to get them. If you look at the psychology of the adolescent, it is difficult. They're discovering themselves, their sexuality, they're dealing with body change, physical changes, they are dealing with relationships, they're dealing with lack, they are even dealing with disappointment. And because there have been they feel a sense of disenfranchisement and marginalization. We are trying to get them to conform and do so quickly because we feel at risk now. We feel threatened by them when we allow that lack of discipline to occur. And I've been in situations where I have heard persons saying, leave them. I have been in a setting where I'm told if the child wants to, who says that the child who's sprawled on the desk with his head down, not paying attention to you, is not listening, just leave him. And we make excuses. And I am concerned about how with the middle school transition and I'm not too clear what is being offered because it's so much being offered to the child that what's happening, what is going to happen in the things that in the classroom setting. So these are and yes, there are too many contradictions in our political culture. There are too many. 1 minute you get, and they hear you cursing. They hear you cursing your opponent. They hear you cursing
and calling them all kinds of names.
all kinds of names, and I'm talking one side against the other. And the abuse of women and the abuse too of the gender abuse, women cursing women and men cursing men and women cursing men, and that is what we present. No wonder the young people don't want to vote. No wonder the young people don't want to be part of the system, but they don't want to vote. They don't want to exercise their right, but they still want to enjoy the benefits. I don't know if you get me.
Yes.
So it's
Oh yes.
contradiction
Oh
again.
yes.
Those contradictions. And I watch it too. I watched the Senate and how some people speak in the Senate, not all, but clearly where the partisan line is drawn. That kind of, we had a case where a senator, Caswell, will know about it, apologized, but didn't really apologize.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have it also in the lower house where people make, I remember clearly when Bishop Adderley was the lone opposition member, how the other 29 used to make like mock sport at the man. And even the
Very
little
disrespectful.
the Jane come lately and the Johnny come lately would be throwing remarks disrespectfully across the divide and not giving the respect that is due. So these are the contradictions. I call them contradictions. And it isn't a case as um, do as I say and not as I do. It is do as I do and do as I say. We grew up hearing do as I say and not as I do. Now there is no line dividing that. It is do as I do and do as I say. And that is unfortunate. That is unfortunate. And so it brings me on to what I would like us to look at, however briefly, and the 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 I noticed that you had uh, part of the it's here help. Barbados needs help on TMWS. We look at the misnomer of education reform. And I smile at that. I think that's a very cheeky one thrown in there. I don't know who threw it in. I am not going to say that if we look at the meaning of misnomer. It means it could be something that is wrong or inaccurate or misleading. I am just asking myself and ourselves here that we would critique what is being offered and where if we can make a contribution to the consultations. Um, Forget that they're canned, the responses are canned and prepackaged. Your contribution, they don't have control over your contribution, your observations, the questions you raise, the suggestions you make. Today I went to collect an item, and the lady, she is in her just approaching 60. She has a grandson who now started um, St. Michael's or one of those schools, and she has a toddler grandson. And she said, Rose, what do you think about this education reform? They're behaving like, and this is what she said, they behaving like if it is about them, but it is about our children and it's about us as parents. And she vehemently said, when they talk about, and she is not who you would put into that class, you understand what I mean? But she was very passionate when she said, when they talk about education reform, concentrate on the primary school, because no child on leaving primary school at age 11 should enter secondary school and leave secondary school not being able to read, not having literacy skills. So please look to see what is happening at the primary level, what they're offering. I am pleased to hear that they are making preschool education universal. That means that between the ages 3 to 5, provision now is being made in the public government schools for that 3 to 5 age group where space was limited and many of those younger children um, were denied or had to access private education. So they are looking at universal preschool education. I give them a tick, but they are making it play based. I hope that by the time that 5-year-old transitions, that you are not, that child will have so much play in him or her that settling down now to a more structured, a more formal type of learner would not be traumatic on the child or on the teacher, or the complaints will be too many for the parent. So we have to look at continuing and something that flows seamlessly from that preschool into the infant school and into the upper primary school. Now, I don't know, we're looking at a new form of transitioning from primary school to secondary school. How they're doing it, they have not, I have to study it some more. It's still unclear. We're hearing about the feeder system, but I was studying the Education Act. There was always a feeder system in. So deconstruct those terms for us and tell us clearly the intention and how it will be done. I'll do some more study on that. Any response,
Well, well,
Brother
you see,
Ferdy?
but you see again, you're asking for a defining of what people mean. I remember when we began to take on the child protection bill, we were asking for the same thing. We were asking for definitive explanations and definitions of what you mean by XYZ. Now, I'm not the experts at this, I'm not the legal mind, so I tend to stay in my lane. But I have found that in many instances, I'm not a lawyer, but I've found that one of the places of greatest ambiguity is in the legal area because they state things that then have to be interpreted, but it's not interpreted in the way we might think is understood. It's interpreted a different way. So because of that, we are asking for specific definitions because we understand that in the context of the child protection bill, for example, that conditions could exist where the government can take responsibility carte blanche for a child. And you have things that can be introduced and things that can be brought about relative to the material taught in primary schools, which we are seeing evident just next door in Trinidad. And we're beginning to see one or two places where they're being snuck into our educational curriculum here in Barbados. And we are simply asking for a definition because I agree with you, Rose, that until those matters are defined, we really don't know what you mean. You know, I expressed tonight what is the meaning of integrity, and somebody indicated in the chat that there are a lot of people who don't know what integrity means. You see what I'm saying? So we need to be able to define things and understand when you're going to be bringing about major changes, and we are talking about major changes when you're talking about the educational system. The educational system is fundamentally what a society is built upon. And the educational system is what helps people to move out of a place of poverty to a place of wealth. Okay. One of the things that we talk about in our sessions with many of the people in Africa is poverty through educate. I'm sorry, getting out of poverty through education. Okay, and we are very definitive about what we say. We do not leave it up to anybody's interpretation. We are very clear about what you say. So I agree with you with that. I don't know, Kazul, I don't know if you've been listening. I
Yeah, no,
saw
I
Kimar.
listen to every word, but
Good.
at one point we were not seeing my face. I was stuffing it.
Yeah, but I am not stuffing it. I am
So,
just snacking. I'm just snacking for now. But I am going to pop off when we are finished. I will get something then. But these almond nuts, very good for you, right, Rose? This is a healthy snack.
Yes,
It's
yes.
chocolate. It's chocolate coated almonds.
No, 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 no.
Okay, it's not sugar coated almonds. It's chocolate, and
But
chocolate is supposed to
chocolate
be,
is fine. But I
yeah.
hope you're not eating a whole pack at one sitting.
No, no, I am I'm taking one by one, but I will I will stop. I will stop at very shortly because I think I'm feeling relatively satisfied. As I move toward the time when the program is over, I will go and eat. And I don't. I see Kimar is
no,
into. I
but
want to
before you
bring.
think though, I want to ask Rose.
Let me bring in Kimar anyhow though before you ask.
Mm.
I'm just looking at the time. Let me look back here because I'm trying to keep that 8:50. We're at 9 o'clock. So let me bring in Kimar, and you can go ahead as soon as I welcome him in, and you can go ahead and ask Rod. Welcome, Kimar. I'm just trying to get you in. There you are. Let me know. Um, just trying to get him in. Add to stage. Right. Okay, Kimar, you're there with us. You're hearing us okay? You hearing us all right, Kimar? I think you muted. I unmuted and you
Yes,
can go
good
back.
night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
Kimar.
Good night to
Good
everybody.
night.
Hey,
Good night.
good night, Rose, Caswell,
Hi, Ma.
Officer. Hey,
Yeah, nice to have you in, Kimar. Nice to have you in.
Um,
yeah, the pleasure
uh,
is all mine.
Rose, what I
Yeah,
want to
Kaz.
ask you, this education reform, this is politician driven, and that's where the problem is. This is the Prime Minister's vision that the people, I hate to call that word pedagogy or whatever it is, who had no sort of training in the area. She goes overseas, she sees something that she likes and she wants to impose it on Barbados. And she get the professionals in Barbados to come and fashion something around what she saw out there that isn't working for them. Because my concern is that over the years, we've had teachers leaving Barbados and teachers are being invited, just like our nurses, invited to these states because they like what we do here. And we are now trying to change our system to what those people have that isn't working for them. It does not make any sense. But because my view, and I just want to see if you agree, that this thing is politician driven rather than needs or anything driven.
And I agree with you. Both you and the Reverend brought to both you have brought me to a point. One, Reverend Ferdy, when you were talking about um, the legal ramifications, the law. One of, I don't know if you remember that in an early session, I said that the one of the actions indicated in the 2022 manifesto of the BLP was that of developing a new modern education act to replace the 1983 act. Remember, I said that, which would, and some questions I'm going to raise, and I'm going to ask you for a few more minutes. I'm going to hurry through it. And therefore, the law will be brought in when the proposals go through the formality of these consultations, which are due to be finished at the end by November. They will then go to cabinet in January, and as well, then you know the process. You know the process, and some of the things that are being sought to be the proposal turning into actions will have to have some change in the law, and I'm going to point out some to you soon. And I do know that there are changes that will be needed. For example, the word like retarded when speaking to special education should be crossed out because that is a derogatory term to be used to explain or describe children with physical, mental, intellectual challenges. So retarded must be struck out, just like how imbecile was struck out from my book. And next, Caswell, let me explain to you where all this is coming from. And I'm back to my notes again. My colleagues and those my people who are listening. Now, Barbados joined the UN 9 days after we became independent. Um, the new Prime Minister, um, Arabaro, not being disrespectful, but in interest of time, the new Prime Minister, not giving him all his handle, Barbados joined the UN on the 9th of December 1967. And it was at that meeting that the famous "We will be friends of all and satellites of none" was uttered, that statement. Our Prime Minister, Barbados, only 6 days old as an independent nation, and he stands up at the UN, and we became a member on that day, and that was his speech. We could call it his maiden speech, but that was a master stroke. And it is quoted, I was looking at it, and it is quoted internationally. And I smiled, Catswell. You remember when it was in Jamaica they had a meeting of a few persons from the Caribbean to meet with some American ambassador or something, you remember?
Yes.
And our prime minister, ma'am, called a press conference and she quoted that. But still, we are seeing, although it has been quoted, and I think it was, like a little, was it? When you get left out, you get efficient. So,
Hmm.
draw all the great master, the great great statement of our father of independence. I think that was thrown in and said that as a Caribbean people, we would not allow external persons to come in and divide us and cause division.
You're
That's
right.
another,
You're right.
that's another debate.
Yeah.
We could have a discussion on that.
What did the World Health Organization do? What did the World Economic Forum, or what is the World Economic Forum? I
What
think
is the IMF doing?
exactly. I don't recall. Listen, I have understood that we have shifted. We call ourselves a republic, but what we have really done is we have shifted colonial masters from over the Atlantic back to the other side of the Atlantic. That's what we've done.
Point taken here. And this brings me on further. You see, when I am in a setting with you, provocative country, persons, I can't get a thing slip
Students,
past you.
provocative students. We're students.
But, Caswell, what is happening in education is not in isolation to the universal worldwide agenda. Remember, I said we signed on to the UN. Therefore, treaties out of the UN, my people here and those who are listening, when you sign on, you have to your member, you abstain or you sign on to a lot of the, you make that bilateral signing on, memorandum of understanding, or sign on wholesale to the agenda. Now, I'd like to share with you historically what's happening. The UN in set some had a meeting called the Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda. Now, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So you will hear things being bandied around. We're meeting the 2030 agenda. What is that? The UN is an agenda set by the UN, and they call it for sustainable development, or the
Sustainable
SDGs,
sustainable
the
development goals.
sustainable development goal.
Yes. And there's
Pardon
17
me.
of them.
There are 17 sustainable development goals. Those of you who want to read up more on it, the document is not arduous, it is not loaded, it is in a language that the average person could read and understand. That's one thing about that document. It is called Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As I said, there's 17 sustainable development goals, and there are 169 targets. And the goals focus on 5 categories, and you will also hear these, my people, being bandied around on different platforms, or on different, uh, even in education reform. It focuses on the people, the planet, prosperity. Hence, we throw in that financial literacy. That is in the curriculum, financial literacy, as if financial literacy will lead to wealth creation. That's a myth. And I have taught financial literacy as part of my adult education program when I teach functional literacy and numeracy. That becomes a critical part of functional literacy and numeracy in my programs. So we are here prosperity, and the allowance for that attainment is through teaching financial literacy in the curriculum. And it was launched, I think, last week or this week. Some schools have been selected to be taught financial literacy at primary school. I have no problem if it is going to teach our children how to manage their pocket money, manage their resources, and get a kind of understanding, I support it. But let us not be misled that financial literacy or exposure to that kind of teaching will lead to wealth creation. Thank you, Pastor, for putting that up. So they're focusing on people, the planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. And we hear those words bandied around on the platforms. When our leader speaks, when her senators speak, when her ministers speak, they give us the narrative and throw in these words. Now, in 2015, these sustainable goals were identified. These 17 sustainable goals with the accompanying 169 targets. And they came into effect the 1st of January 2016 with the goal to have the full implementation by 2030. Do you now see the haste with which so much is being done within our jurisdiction? Now, Kimar, I pull out this for you, and I'm sure you know about that. Goal 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well being for all at all ages. 3.9 in that goal states by 2030, substantially reduce the number of deaths, illnesses, illnesses from hazardous chemicals and air, water, soil pollution, and contamination. I leave that there for Kimar and Caswell to pick up on later on. But goal three is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. And 3.9 of that says by 2030, substantially reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals and air, water, solution, and contamination. So let us now get back to education. What does the sustainable development goal, the goal 4 comes closely after healthy lives and well-being, and goal 4 says ensure inclusive and equitable education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. I do not say no to that. I believe in lifelong learning. That's why I'm here. I believe in equitable, here it is, equitable education for all. But let us look at that term, inclusive. And does it have any implications for this reform that is being undertaken? And where is it being, um, what's the word, attached to? Where is it being, um, let's say, attached to or accounted for? Now, this is what UNESCO says. I'm quoting from UNESCO, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Previously, when we talked inclusive and equitable quality education, we were speaking to special needs, including those children who needed special education because of some kind of disability, some kind of lack physically or intellectually. And so UNESCO was promoting special education within the mainstream education. Some countries have sought to do it, some successfully, some still doing it, and it's ongoing. Some have not been able to satisfy that because this case you have education for all at primary level and secondary. Far less scarce resources to bring the special needs child into the mainstream. However, UNESCO has said here in a recent document that the concept of inclusion has broadened. It's no longer used solely to describe special education, but it has broadened. And to achieve this ambitious goal, please listen to this one. This from UNESCO. We encourage governments to ensure that adequate legislative frameworks are in place to ensure the right to education and fight all forms, strong language, of fight all forms of discrimination. And here where UNESCO, and Caswell, this leads to what you brought up, and here what UNESCO stipulates. Countries should also identify who is excluded, why, and when, and at what stage of their educational journey. In this way, we can build education systems that see diversity, note the word, diversity as a strength, and where every learner matters equally. UNESCO is convinced that inclusive educational systems are most effective means of combating discriminatory attitudes and gender-based discrimination in order to welcoming communities, build inclusive societies, and achieve education for all. And it went on to say that increasingly, what's it? Pardon me, their policy statement goes that every UNESCO believes that every learner matters. It states that millions of people worldwide continue to be excluded from education for reasons which might include sex. We do know that Barbados we have co-ed schools. So Barbados could take that box off that we have not excluded our children based on sex, male and female. But UNESCO continues with gender orientation. They started off with sex and gender orientation. That means, as you know, uh, and mind you, all groups in society have their rights, but when their rights will infringe on others, then we have to critique more closely. They are looking at gender orientation, and we know that this is part of the LGBTQ demands within the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And they are saying UNESCO believes that no one should be excluded on gender orientation. So therefore, are we going to be changing and modernizing the Education Act to include it, to enable this reform and to include provision based on gender orientation? Therefore, that little boy who, or that young boy, that secondary school boy, even a primary school child, who's even a nursery school child, that 3 to 5, who decides, I am not a boy, I am a girl, and we pin that back into the Child Protection Act.
Yeah,
Can
that,
that
that
can
yeah,
that
that,
child
that comes
then
back in.
decide, I am going to wear to school a tunic, a skirt, and a blouse because I am not a boy. I am a girl in a boy's body. Similarly, a boy in how to put it, a girl in a boy's body decide, I am a boy, I am going to wear to school the boys' uniform, and I am going to use the boys' bathroom and vice versa. Because UNESCO clearly says here that they must be not be excluded and must be included based on sex, male and female, gender orientation, ethnic or social origin. And we know that in Barbados, children from other ethnic groups and races and races are integrated into our schools. I do have concerns, however, some are not integrated as well as others. But if we look at the Muslim community, we know that many Muslim children from inner city go to Wesley Hall and those inner city schools primarily. They are not excluded from secondary schools either. They can go to their own schools, but they are included in the mainstream. They're not to be excluded because of language, religion, nationality, economic condition, or ability. Now you notice where ability is mentioned at the end, and they are not even saying special education needs, ability, but higher. UNESCO is seeing that and linking all these things to sustainable development, uh, inclusion, equity, and they are saying that they will provide, UNESCO provides support and funding to governments to put in place that legislative framework to enable where it is lacking. They said it here, it's in the document, where it is lacking to ensure that these um, policy statements
Are included.
become practice and are included, and they satisfy goal 4, which is part of the wider UN agenda.
Now,
Therefore, my question tonight, and I'll let you pick up from there, and because I'm finishing here, so we could discuss it more. And I want to draw to your attention that there was a summit. You remember the chief education officer talked about having consultation with thousands of persons in 2022. That was what we call the prestige of a summit preparing at when there are these big UN summits. You usually have the local consultation, the national consultation, which feeds into the regional, which feeds into the pre-summit. Now, Barbados had its consultation in earlier for the pre-summit in Paris that occurred in September 2022. And in preparation for the pre-summit, Brother Ferdy, they had they looked at a theme called inclusive, equitable, safe, and healthy schools. That is where they brought in this thing of decolonizing education and all of that. But within there, they sought in this statement, they looked at the global presentation of what is inclusion, and they looked also at societal attitudes coming out of that thematic discussion that we held here. They looked also at social attitudes to the concept of inclusion based on the model presented internationally and societal perceptions about persons with disabilities, etc. But within that whole theme of inclusive, equitable, safe, and healthy schools, and I have my own take too on safe schools. It
but let
might
me
not,
ask you,
yes, please.
Rose, because there's so much information you just shared there. Wow. I mean, I've been looking at the Sustainable Development Goals as you've been speaking, and I'm observing, the thing is, uh, in the world today, we can't define a woman. We don't know what a woman is. And so when you speak of gender, we have to be able to define gender. Now, Caswell, Kimar, I know Kimar, you've just come in. I know you've been listening to a lot of what we've been sharing here, but I'm sure you have thoughts in terms of all that you've heard Rose share, some of the bit that you would have heard us share earlier. And I just want to give you an opportunity to just jump in here and express some of the thoughts that you may have been having, some of the observations, questions, or comments.
Um, in terms of education and the special development goals, which was handed down from the United Nations, I that we could all see as part of the global agenda or the new global agenda to create this new digital cashless society. So part of bringing countries to that point is to change the education system to know re-educate the population as to what that new society will be. So that involves, as Rose said, inclusion, which would give these so-called marginalized groups like the LGBT and some religious groups um, more freedoms under a new constitution, uh, giving the power or giving more rights, or so-called rights to individuals, and individuals meaning even as far down as the children, that children will know be responsible for themselves as opposed to a parent having responsibility for the child. So that will involve like sex changes and that type of stuff. In the new world, children will have that type of leverage or power to make those decisions. So even in the child protection bill, it started there in terms of government removing the rights of the parent and giving the child more autonomy to make these decisions. So part of the IDB test was to ascertain where the children are at mentally in terms of gauging who's LGBT, who's more prone to this, who's more prone to that, to get an understanding as to where or what other programs they would have to hand down to lead the children into the new sustainable development goals 2030. So the test was just a survey to see how far along the target groups were so that they could feed that back into their system and then advise the government what to do and what changes they will have to make, what curriculum they will have to deploy in accordance with the new sustainable development goals. So when you have persons like the current education minister in the position, um, they may oblivious to what is going on in the ministry, is that we have two sets of agendas at play, which is we have to have an administrator. Meaning the administrator would be the person who manages the day-to-day things like the school, the management of the schools, and whatever other departments under the Ministry of Education, and also policies that are being handed down from the level of cabinet to the office of Prime Minister in association and on advice of the IMF, the IDB, and the international banks um, in terms of shaping our public policies to suit the sustainable development goals which fall in line with the United Nations goals basically.
Mhm.
So what we are seeing in terms of education will be the dismantling of the old English structure. Remember we were based off the old English grammar schools. So when we transform into a republic, we are actually agreeing to change our education systems. So we are going to have a more Americanized system in Barbados, as America is basically the control of the IMF. So we are basically taking American education in Barbados and the Caribbean. Right? So we are trading education systems and we are moving away from the old grammar school system, which should be the older schools like the Harrison College and the Commonwealth and the Lodge. Those older schools, um, there was discussion about the hierarchy of the school system, and people wanted to go to those older schools versus the newer schools, and was a high school versus a lower school. There was discussion about removing the 11 plus to dismantle that system, but no, dismantling 11 plus will actually make it more difficult for people who consider themselves to be working class or who are not rich or connected. It will make it more difficult for those persons to go to what you will call these new special schools or these new, basically with America it's called Ivy League schools, right? But these middle schools that they're trying to develop, they have basically Ivy League system, which will now be more controlled as opposed to before. So they'll be able to choose now strategically who gets into what school, which will continue to reaffirm the class system in Barbados and make it more difficult for poorer children and poorer families who had the ability through the provision of free education. When the IMF start to go in, that will make it more difficult because the government will not start have to will tell the people that they got to pay up front for education, right? So when the government embarks on that, you will have the government sending, say, like, right now it's set up in a way that even if you live in New Orleans and you were enough, you could go to Harrison College if you want. What they will be doing now in the new system will be channeling you to schools based off your who your mother and father be in terms of family name and lineage, how much you could afford to pay, if you could afford to pay the fees, and selection for the kids at school will not or will no longer be based on ability really. Right? And that's how it is in America. If you could pay top dollar, you could go to the best schools in America. You don't have to be smart, right? And you make it, and you're going to have a big successful job running one of the Fortune 500 companies, and you're not very smart. So what we are doing is trading a good system that we have, which we just need to work out some kinks in it and run it properly, for a system which will reaffirm a class system and make it more disadvantageous for working class um, students to enter into certain schools, and that will make Barbados society worse, in terms of people moving up the classes or moving up or having social mobility. So that's why Arabaro and the others at the time saw the vision to bring free education. So all of that is now being reversed because these bigger countries and even elements of the IMF may believe that a country like Barbados, free education, universal free education for everybody is too good. We don't even offer that in our countries. Right? So at UE, the government started to expand in terms of more international students. So they were reducing the role of the local Bajan population because they were free, and they started to go after more regional students and go after more international students. And as we speak, the policies at Cave Hill are more targeted towards international students because they are bringing more money, right? So handling the education situation in the context of the IMF, we have some serious decisions to make and we need proper discussion, but I don't have the confidence that we will get the discussion at that level. It's being sold to the people that we just removing the 11 plus and that's it. But that's not it. It's way deeper than that. And as Rose explained in further detail, and I just gave the economic side to it, you'll get a bigger and broader understanding of what's really happening in terms of the changes in the education system.
Um, Thank you, Kimar. May just interject here. I am looking at the chat on my cell phone, and one of our people said, writes, the government does not have the moral authority or justification to make such decisions. You are introducing the same thing you brought us full circle, where Reverend Furdy started us off, where he asks about integrity and being ethical. It is not a case of moral, you're saying the government does not have the moral authority or justification to make such decisions. Changing the Child Protection Act, did it bring it into any question the government's moral authority or justification? There are the response has been to a wider agenda, and even so it is to satisfy that agenda, because that agenda leads into another personal agenda that leads into another personal agenda. So it is not only Saturday. There is no. Do you hear anybody in the lower house? In the upper house, you will get that voice that would say, no, it can't be like that. You will get the Monique Tate, and you will get the Dr. Braffett, and you will get some others who would speak with a conscience, but still vote. But in the lower house, and certainly if it gets into the lower house, these things, and no one and no one comes out and say, no, it should not be so. It had to pass the cabinet. Either they were shot down, shut up, chased out, cast out, hush up in the cabinet, and say it has to go, and therefore it rolls down and it comes and it comes out, and it then comes in. No moral authority or justification. Take out the word moral and ask, does the government have the authority or justification to make such decisions? Don't be so what's the word, should I say, decent, moral, to put that word in there. They have the authority. We give them the authority when we give them 30-0 twice. We give them the authority. Do as you like to us. And anyone who comes out and says, look at it differently, and come from an informed position, or even not, if not informed, but from a personal, conscionable, passionate, I'm a citizen of Barbados. I don't want this to happen to my Barbados. Raise concerns and issues. We are labeled as troublemakers. We are labeled as anti-government. We are labeled otherwise, but not as citizens of Barbados, which is a democratic society where there is freedom of speech. And we are hushed or shunned when we are thought to be hushed or shunned or pushed back when we come and speak out. But we have given them the authority, both moral, legislative authority. We have given them the political authority to and justification to make these decisions on our behalf. Caswell, what do you usually say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And we should be ashamed that twice they didn't in that short time do certain things. And now this is the unfinished business that has to be hastened so that we can present to the world, look, for a small nation like ours, we're well ahead of the game, even ahead of some of the bigger nations of the world.
You see,
So
Rose,
that
we are
is where
so
I came into that statement. I'm sorry that I had to interject there, sir.
Not a
Chair.
problem. What I will tell you though is that people are talking about authority, but there's all they also have the immoral authority to do what they like, and you can see it starting not only here, but you remember some years ago when the current prime minister was minister responsible for home affairs and responsible for the prison, sought to introduce condoms into the prison. This is not just happened. This Barbadians should have seen this coming. We had our eyes wide shut because we know what was happening. We know what was going to happen when she gets into office. She is now the poster child for the LGBT movement in this region, and she is fashioning Barbados laws to meet that agenda, so that she can see her ambitions fulfilled. Because that LGBT um, segment is not small. It is not fringe. They got a lot of people in there, and they have a lot of power. So when she caters to their views, I don't know if she even believes them, but it suits her purposes to shift Barbados's morals to this. That's why you're seeing legislation that is saying that we have domestic partners, you know, because we have husband and wife, we have union other than a marriage, which is a man and a woman who um live together for 5 years or more, and but now we're having domestic partnerships, and it's creeping into the laws because it crept into um the remote employment bill, which is for the bill that established the um welcome stamp. I know we also know having it in the discriminate employment prevention of discrimination act. I am not one to discriminate against anybody, but I'm not one to promote it either. If you have your political lifestyle, that's your business. That's between you and God. You will find out that there's one when the time comes. But because some people say that they ain't got none, remember? They got some of those people. They will find out in the end that there is one. But my thing is that I am not going to force you to do anything. But why are you now trying to force an agenda? And because you have the legislative power, you are making it laws and repugnant that are repugnant to the most right-thinking people in this country. You know, we had as a little boy growing up, we had men who used to behave in that kind of manner. Nobody killed them. Nobody threw stones at them and or anything like that. They existed in society, and we used to.
But some of them are in some of the highest offices in the country. Let's be brutally frank.
Yeah, we
Let's
know
be
that.
brutally frank. Some of them are in some of the highest offices in the country. But let me say this to you, Cato. What we are hearing is an externally driven agenda, which the representative for St. James North or wherever he is talked a lot of nonsense about because we are UN,
You
we are
just said
signed
you
on to
just said
UN.
that he talked. You just have to say
Um,
talk.
we are driven by or we are committed to a UN agenda because of the things that we signed on to, but the CPC during the child protection bill, the child protection bill contributions that were made in the Senate by different persons, the CPC in a sense said that we had the right, we reserved the right to object to certain aspects of things and not to accept certain aspects of things. Now, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not expressing it in the legal terminology, but I got her an understanding from her that while we are accepting certain things, we don't have to accept all. Africa is clear on this. And this is why I don't understand. Africa is clear. If the majority of African people who voted their governments into office say no, the government has to say no because
Not
we're the
here.
people who put you there. And that is what I'm talking about. If we are dissatisfied, then we have to make a decision. And it is difficult. This is why I really believe in, and you have to pardon me expressing a little bit away from the educational aspect, Rose, but this is why I really believe we need some serious reform in Barbados in the political environment where the people have the capacity to recall a government. Because right now there's nothing in a sense we can do for the next 5 years. Because the only person who can call an election in this country, as far as I'm aware, is the prime minister. Or if the persons, as we were talking a little earlier, Caswell, if the individuals in parliament decided by majority that they do not want her as prime minister and they want to change that, I think you mentioned about having to call a general election. These are the only ways that we can get, and it is highly unlikely, apart from a act of God, and I'm not being an insurance salesman, but apart from an act of God, it is impossible to get the 29 other members of the parliament right now to stand up against one person. And that is what you see. You have an individual, and it is not just her. And let's be clear on this: all around the world since the pandemic, every government leader has become a totalitarian dictator. We saw it clearly demonstrated in Canada. We saw it again demonstrated in Australia and in New Zealand. And those are some of these significant countries. All right. Now, I just want to pop away from that for a minute, if I can, Rose, and just make mention to one thing, because I've seen it one or two comments to do um, with the amount of water. And in the last 10 minutes that we have, I don't know if we can just touch on it, Kimar and Caswell. But I made it my business to do a little research just now, because I've heard a lot of people talk about how all these other countries in the world are doing what is being proposed here in Barbados. And I looked up, I asked the question, how many countries in the world are treating wastewater reuse for drinking water? And I discovered, according to the 2017 World Health and US EPA census, these are the countries: Australia, California, Texas, Singapore, Namibia, South Africa, Kuwait, Belgium, and the United Kingdom. Brazil is giving consideration to it. That's it. Now I'm going by the UN. I'm going by the UN information in terms of water resources. So when we hear of people telling us that it's happening all over the world, that is not true. It's a
You
lie.
you expect politicians to tell the truth? No.
Okay, it's not true. And further to that, and I want to be clear on this. There are things that you express, and I listened to the interview with Kimar, and I missed, unfortunately, the one with you. But the reality of it is that nobody can tell us that you cannot get sick from the reintroduction into our aquifers of sewage water. Nobody can tell us that you can't get sick.
But even in Singapore that you mentioned, they do over 300,000 tests on that water when the year comes, and the one that they use to recharge the aquifer or whatever has to do with it. It is. I mean, we don't have any capacity to do 300,000 tests in Barbados. We can't even get COVID fixed right and test properly. The problem here is that I don't know what who agenda we are going on, because whenever you see this government rushing into something, they are being instructed from outside. I don't know if they want to see if Barbadians will get sick or what they're getting sick from before they introduce this thing elsewhere. That's what we have become. We have become the guinea pigs of the first world countries,
Yeah.
and so in order to get some loans. But the point that these look, today, only today, I had to say to somebody that whether the water is good and wholesome, there will always be a doubt in my mind, because government sneak it in through the back door when the boy was looking. That legislation was passed in the House on the 23rd of May this year, in one day. And then the following day, the 24th, it was passed in the Senate. No news items, no nothing. The government did not inform us. Now, if this was so good for us, why would government have to act so clandestinely to sneak this thing in upon us? And then even if you look at the legislation, it never mentioned the word sewage at all. You know,
No, I
and something that Rose mentioned, when she was going through the list, and she said, and the one at the bottom, coming down close to the end. The same thing they did in this piece of legislation. They said what this water be used for, and when you come A, B, C, D, E, down to J or something like this, they said we charge the aquifer, we charge underground water, underground water. So they even hit it in sight, so that you going to all that list, because putting it in the groundwater would have been more important than wetting trees. But the wetting trees came above. You see, they hide it from you. So even if you had noticed it, you would not. If you noticed the legislation, you would not have seen it. You cannot expect people to trust you when you behave like that, even if you were doing everything correctly. But when you're hiding to it, people will be suspicious. And I am suspicious of everything this government does, because they do the wrong thing first every time. You show me a situation where they didn't do the wrong thing first and they had a reverse. When you show me that, then they will stop talking.
Well, here's some interesting facts, and I'm looking at them quickly. Norway uses 99% of the water. Just let me get it. Amazing how some right. 99% of the water that they recycle is used for salmon production. In China, the majority of the water recycled from cow's milk recovers water from cow's milk and recycled in the production of animals. United States recycle wastewater for urban watering. The Emirate of Ajman uses 50% of the wastewater from the tongue to recycle and reuse. United Arab Emirates uses the recycled water for agriculture, animal husbandry, city gardens. And then Namibia uses 21,000 cubic meters of drinking water is produced every day from wastewater. So when we talk about it being used all over the world, and I could understand Namibia, you can afford to do those things in a place like Namibia because they have a major crisis. But even there, one of the major problems they have in Africa is E. coli. I think that's what it is. Am I right?
Equally, yes.
E. coli. All right. So I mean, these are things, and I know Kaz, I know Kimar would probably like to close out our night. Rose, I'm not taking away your thunder. It's just that I'm
No,
looking
it's
at
all
the time.
right. It's all
I'm
right.
looking at the time to see that we are within the next 4 minutes. We're just down to 4 minutes. So I don't know if and I'm still trying to get a few ads done up here in terms of the march tomorrow, 10 o'clock, beginning at the uh, Kensington Oval, by the Kensington Oval opposite the Costa Mall car park at 10 o'clock sharp. But I'm going to put it up here. We do need some funds to take care of this song in the truck for tomorrow. We'll put that back up along with the numbers that you can call or the PayPal account that you can contribute to, and give you, Kimar, the closing opportunity to close with any remarks from yourself to do with anything that we have been speaking about, including just touching on the water if you wish. But we just have about 3 minutes left on the program. So please go right ahead.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing everybody at the march tomorrow. Come out and support. Get take think this is the final march that we are having, so we uh need to leave with a serious impact, bring a serious message, and send a serious message to the powers that be. Uh, Great presentation from Rose this evening. So thank you, Rose, for sharing
From
your
the
valuable
oh,
insight to us. I hope to see you tomorrow as well. And yeah, just a general thank you to everybody. I realize, as we said on the show, that the water and the sewage water has been dominating the airways and has been going among Barbadians, and rightfully so. So we are going to continue the fight because this is serious. This is life and death, and I will continue to stand up and represent to the people whenever called upon to fight this injustice. So, with that being said, thank you all and have a good night.
thank you so much, Kimar, for being here. I know we didn't interact with you a lot tonight, but we did want to hear in terms of the educational aspect. But we are looking forward to a great show on Sunday. I believe you will be back here, and Kaz will be back here. I'm not sure who the other guests will be at the moment, but we're looking forward to a great show. We want to thank everybody that has been on the show tonight. Rose, any closing remarks on your part, and then followed by Caswell, and then I will have the honors of just closing out the night.
Thank you again for having me and for allowing us to share together in this way. I think that it was a well coordinated and seamless, interactive um, time. And I would encourage us to continue to lend our support through the mark, through liking the show on Facebook online, sharing, get involved. Remember that it is our apathy that corrodes this society from within, and we can't allow that corrosion and leave our fate in the hands and our future in the hands of persons who could be careless and not as vigilant as we want them to be. So thank you again. Uh, have a good night and hopefully see you tomorrow as we go out in solidarity on issues that concern not us but Barbados and the Barbadian public across all lines. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
And
thank you
Caswell,
so much.
Caswell, I hope that the evening spent with us made up for not being at the reunion. What you say? Up and on?
Up and on. It did mess up.
Well, thank you so much, Rose. I mean, wow, wow, there's so much information, such an education always on this show. I have absolutely enjoyed hosting and making my own little interjections from time to time. Caswell, your closing remarks, my friend, my Combamarian, I don't want to say, no, don't let me say that word, my Combamarian friend. Yes, sir, your
Yeah.
closing
Well,
remark.
yes, thank you very much, Freddie. And I want everybody on this thing here to remember we are making an impact. Whether they try to downplay it or not, we are making an impact. And I can tell you how I know this because everywhere I walk, people I didn't expect would be on tuning on this show. I couldn't pass through. I parked my car in House Assembly Yard to go to a place on just the opposite Cape Shepherds. And I had 5 people mentioned in the show during that stretch. 5. Yeah, you hear what I'm telling you? Just from the House Assembly Yard, I come across High Street and walked down to Cape, just the opposite Cape Shepherd, and 5 people stopped me. I got to the meeting a few minutes late because of the people stopping me because of this show. Right? So we are making an impact. People are listening. People want to be educated. People want to find out. And that's one thing they're telling me. You people on this thing are saying so many things. But I thank Kimar and I thank you and all that kind of stuff. Because we politicians like to do their business in the dark. They don't want light to be shown on it, and we are shining the light. We are not doing anything wrong. We are doing what responsible citizens should do. Question, and we are questioning. Come out tomorrow, please, and join the march because that is the way of letting the government know that you are not happy, you're not satisfied with their behavior. Now, please join us. Please help us to do your bidding. Good night, everybody. And like a lady said to me, I was walking, I went to lunch, and two ladies were walking up to me, and the woman said, I love you. And the girl said, Mommy, you know, and she tried to explain who I was, and then the girl said, Oh, I understand now. You know, that is it. People from all walks of life watch the show and they believe us. And I will pledge to you that I will never try to mislead you in any way. Good night, everybody.
Well,
Good
thank you
night,
so
everybody.
good night, Rose, and thank
Blessings.
you, Caswell, Rose, Kemar, And thank you, audience. Wow, we got up over 300 tonight. Again, we really want to thank all of you. I mean, so many names, and uh, there's some things that we would hesitate, shooting up there on the screen. But we do appreciate your input, your comments, your questions. There's not too many questions I saw tonight, but a number of comments, and we really, really appreciate your input. Want to remind you again with the march, those of you in Barbados, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, we assemble outside of the Kensington Oval Car Park. You'll see it on the screen. I'll just try to pull it up there. Accountability for computer sex tests, the accountability for the Springer School fiasco. I saw some messages tonight that I didn't even have the chance to share, Rose, concerning some of the students that were once jovial and excited, now are living a life of horror with nightmares and all these kind of things. Removing laws that pollute Bajan water, parental rights in the Child Protection Bill, honest and transparent management of the National Insurance Lifeline. And these are the Watch Out My Children, Barbados Concerned Citizens, the Rastafari Progressive Movement, the Marcia Weeks Show, Unity Workers Union, from Massey Car Park in Independence Square, sorry, a Massey Car Park by Kensington Oval to Independence Square, no meeting at the end. We do need some funds. I've been putting it up through the program. We need to have a few dollars more to conclude making payment for the truck. That's another $800 for the sound, and I think it's $400, $250 for the truck. So we need an additional $1,050 in terms of the bills for tomorrow. We were successful in getting the police permission, and to make your contributions, you can give a call to Mr. Caswell Franklin. It's up on the screen there for you to see. 256-4706, or Marcia Weeks at 236-7000. And of course, if you're overseas, or I think it can even be done for Barbados, I'm not 100% sure, but you can also go to the PayPal at stepbystepfilms@gmail.com, and you can make your contributions there as well. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow in our march. We believe in God for some good weather tomorrow as well. I was looking at the radar. Um, I don't know if I'll get the if I can get it done. Yeah, I tried doing all kinds of things, Caswell, and but I'll see if I can pull up the radar as we go off the screen tonight, that you may be able to see, and if you can see it when I pull it up, you can see the Barbados radar. It will show you fundamentally what the weather is going to be looking like over the next few hours, probably into tomorrow. I'm just going to put that up. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. Let me just stop that screen share. And I'm going to go to one other. Let me see here quickly. Right, here we go. Let's see if we can put that up there that you can see it. You can see the weather moving away from Barbados. You can see some big open spaces to the east of Barbados there. That is the Barbados radar, keeping tabs of the weather around us. So we're looking forward to a bright day tomorrow, bright morning, maybe a couple of brief showers, intermittent showers. But I am not the weatherman. I'm not the weatherman. I do not work for the Barbados Meteorological Office. But that is the Barbados radar that you're looking at there on the screen. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Caswell. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Kimar. Thank you, audience. It's been a pleasure hosting the program again tonight. And we wish you all the best. Have a great weekend. God bless you. And have a great, great night. Good night.
Good night.
God.
Thank you. Blessings. Bye.